Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. Today, I'd like to present my research proposal by name Analysis of Financial Statement Fraud with the Fraud Hexagon Theory Approach. In this research proposal, I'll divide it into three sections: Introduction, Library Review, and Research Methods. Bab 1, Introduction. My research background is financial statements are a means of communication of company with users of financial statements that contain financial condition, performance, and result of the company's operation. The information contained in the financial statements encourage the management to do everything possible to make financial statements look good, including by committing acts of financial statement fraud. Report to the nation shows data that cases of financial statement fraud are rare case only by 10%, but financial statement fraud can cost companies a value of US around 954,000. Between 2018 and 2019, Indonesia had the highest number of fraud cases in the Asia Pacific region. The Association of Certified Fraud Examining in 2020 stated that banking sector is the sector that cheated the most financial statements, as many as 386 cases found with an average loss of 100,000 US dollar. The phenomenon of financial statement fraud in Indonesia is the case of PT Bank Bukopin in 2018, which cheated financial statements by modifying credit card data. The number of cases of fraud that occur make the perpetrators in the business world need to know the factor that can detect fraud reports of power. One of the theories used is to use fraud triangle theory in 1953, developed into fraud diamond in 2004, fraud pentagon in 2011, and fraud hexagon in 2019. This is all my research question is to does stimulus have influence on financial statements and capability and so on and so on. My research objective is knowing the influence between my variables such as stimulus, capability, collusion, opportunity, rationalization, and egos on financial statement fraud. This is my benefits of my research. The theoretical benefit is to add knowledge and information materials in the field of auditing regarding the detection, especially regarding the detection of financial statement fraud through the fraud hexagon theory approach. Benefit number two, benefit for the company can be used as a consideration for management about matters that affect financial statement fraud. 3. Benefit for investor can provide information for investor in detecting financial statement fraud. 4. Benefits for public accounting firm be a source of information in maximizing quality and prudence in checking financial statement. Section Bab 2, theoretical review. This is my theoretical background. I'm using agency theory, stakeholder, and so on and so on. First of all, agency theory. Theory agency was initiated by Jensen and Mackling, 1976. We explained that the agency relationship arises when there is a cooperation contract from shareholder or principal to exercise and delegate his authority in decision-making with the management. Stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory says that the company in carry out its activities should provide benefit for its stakeholders and not for its own interest. Fraud. Fraud can be defined as a deliberate violation of the law by making false and erroneous reports of personal or collective gain and presenting them to others. And fraud triangle theory. Fraud triangle theory was found by Crazy Donald in 1953. Crazy Donald says that there are three main elements that cause a person to commit a fraud, such as pressure, opportunity, rationalization. In 2004, David T. Wolfe developed the fraud triangle into fraud diamond, and with adding capability as an element. And in 2011, Crowley Howard developed again the fraud triangle theory into by adding arrogance as an element. fraud hexagon theory in 2019 by Faucinas, adding collusion as a new element. And then financial statement fraud. Under the audit standard, SA section 316, financial statement fraud is a deliberate modification or omission of amounts or disclosure in financial statements to deceive user of financial statements. This is my theoretical background about stimulus. Stimulus is the pressure will be stimulated if the company has performance that is at the point below the average of similar industry. And to measure the stimulus variable, I'm using ROA, net profit, divided by total asset, and capability. Number 2, according to Wolfe Hermanson, capability is the nature of individual in committing fraud that makes them look for opportunities and take advantages of the opportunity to commit fraud. I'm using change of director to measure capability element, and using dummy variable, code 1 if the company changes the director, and code 0 if the company doesn't. 3. Collusion. Collusion can be interpreted as a false agreement between two or more people, where there are parties who do bad actions such as deceiving others. Collusion element can be measured using proxy political connection. Political connection can be measured by using dummy variable, code 1 if there is ownership above 10% by the government or company leadership, and code 0 if there is no ownership above 10% by the government or a company. 4. Opportunity. Opportunity is used by the perpetrator freely in carrying out his action. This is due to weak internal control, lack of discipline, weakness in accessing information, and apathy. To measure variable opportunity, I'm using nature of industry. 5. Rationalization. Rationalization is the justification of what fraudsters do for their action. Fraudsters will carry out various tactics so that their cheating deeds are unknown. To measure the rationalization, I'm using proxy rational of total Akbar ratio company. And last but not least, ego. Ego is described that arrogance is the nature of character of superiority over the right own and feels that internal supervision and company policies do not apply to him. To measure ego variable, I'm using frequent number of CEO's picture. This is the stimulus on financial statements based on the theory stakeholder, where of the view that the business needs support from stakeholder and meet the expectation of stakeholders. Capability on financial statement fraud. The study will use change of director to measure capability level. The change of director has a relationship with the theory of agency, namely the board of the director, which is again has more information and higher competence than the principal. Collusion on financial statement fraud. The study will use political connection to measure collusion. Political connection have something to do with the theory of agency, namely the existence of convenience or privilege owned by company. This allows management to take advantage of this condition by committing act of financial statement fraud by means of manipulation. Opportunity on financial statement fraud. The study will use the nature of industry to measure opportunity levels. Nature of industry has a relationship with the theory of agency that the principal give authority to the management to manage and take decision on the company operational activities. Rationalization on financial statement fraud. Rationalization has a relationship with the theory of agency, namely the difference of interest between the principal and the agent. Rationalization by management is to modify financial statements. Modification of financial statements is triggered because the agent wants to present the best possible financial statements. Ego on financial statement fraud. The form of arrogance can be seen through the frequent number of CEO's picture contained by the company annual report. This is my hypothesis overall, and my variable has a positive effect on the Y variable. And bab 3, research methods. This is my unit of analysis. I'm using banking subsector financial companies listed on the Indonesia Stock Exchange from 2018 to 2020. This is my research sample. My total sample is 46, and my overall sample through 3 years is 138. This is my data collection techniques. I'm using secondary data source and using documentation technique. This is my independent variable, and this is how I calculate the formula. I'm using Jones modification model, and this is my dependent variable, x1 stimulus. I'm using ROA, x2 capability. I'm using dummy variable change of director, x3 collusion. I'm using dummy variable political connection, and x4 opportunity. I'm using nature of industry to calculate the opportunity level. X5 rationalization, I'm using total accrual to total asset. X6, X6 ego, I'm using CEO pick, number of CEO image in annual report. Data analysis techniques. I'm using 4, statistical analysis of description. This is a description data analysis is used to provide information regarding the characteristic of the variable study. 2, classic assumption test. The classical assumption test aims to test whether the research data conducted has a normal distribution or not. 3, multiple linear regression analysis. Multiple linear regression analysis to test the relationship of several independent variables with one dependent variable. And last, hypothesis test. The hypothesis test in this study intends to find out whether there is an influence of independent variables on dependent variables of research and discussion. This is my descriptive statistic research data, and this is the explanation about it. Financial statement fraud in the study is a dependent variable calculated using Jones modified profit management. It is represented by DACC. The average amount of financial statement fraud is 0.0453. The average value is smaller than the standard deviation value of 0.08126, which means that the data is heterogeneous and has a wide distribution of data. The average value of positive discretionary accruals indicates that companies that are the object of the indicated research tend to have financial statement fraud value by increasing profit using profit management. Of the 105 research samples, there were 36 study samples that had negative discretionary accruals values that illustrated that 34.28% of the study sample was indicated to have a financial statement fraud value by lowering the profit rate through profit management. The maximum value owned by PT Bank Amar Indonesia in 2019 with a value of 0.34 and minimum value owned by PT Alobank Indonesia in 2020 with a value of minus 0.12. Stimulus in this study is an independent variable that is projected with the financial target and calculated using ROA. The magnitude of the average or mean value of the stimulus is 0.0088. This value is smaller than the standard deviation value of 0.01160, which means that the data is heterogeneous and has a wide distribution of data. The maximum value owned by PT Bank BTPN Syariah in 2020 with a value of 0.05 and minimum value owned by PT Bank Jago in 2018 with a value of minus 0.04. Capability is an independent variable that is projected by using change of director and carry out using dummy variables. The average value of capability is 0.68, which means that 71 research samples or 68% of research samples make change of directors. On the other hand, 34 research samples or 32% of research samples didn't make board change. The average value is greater than the standard deviation value of 0.4470, which means that the data has a good distribution and is homogeneous. Collusion is an independent variable that is projected using political connection and carried out using dummy variables. The average value of collusion is 0.63, which means that 67 research sample or 63% of research sample have an independent president commissioner or commissioner with political relation. On the other hand, 38 research sample or 37% of research sample didn't have an independent president commissioner or commissioner with political connection. The average value is greater than the standard deviation value of 0.487, which means that the data is well distributed and homogeneous. Opportunity is an independent variable that is projected to the nature of industry and calculated using the ratio of change in business receivable. The average value of the opportunity is 1.0688. The average value is smaller than the standard deviation of 3.41822, which means that the data is heterogeneous and has a good data distribution. The maximum value owned by PT Bank Victoria International in 2019 with a value of 28.63 and the minimum value owned by PT Bank UNJ Indonesia in 2019 with a value of minus 3.76. Rationalization is an independent variable that is projected with the total ratio of company accrual and calculated by dividing the number of accrual values by the amount of company asset values. The average value of rationalization is 0.0043. The average value is smaller than the standard deviation of 0.9346, which means heterogeneous data and has a wide distribution of data. Maximum value owned by PT Bank Business International in 2020 with a value of 0.35 and minimum value owned by PT Mutiara Sentosa in 2020 with a value of minus 0.33. Ego is an independent variable that is projected by frequent number of CEO's picture. The average value of ego is 3.94. The average value is greater than the standard deviation value of 2.575, which indicates that there is no diversity of data and has a good data distribution. The maximum value on ego is 14 that is owned by PT Bank Ganesha in 2018, which means that the company has the most number of CEO photos than any other sample, while the minimum value is owned by PT Bank International in 2018 and 2019, which is 0. This is the data normality test. It is seen that the value of each variable on asim seek to tail greater than 0.05. This means all the data tested is normal and suitable for use in future research. The next one is multicollinearity test. In the multicollinearity test, it was seen that the tolerance value of all independent variables had a value higher than 0.10 and the VIF value had a value lower than 10. Thus, it can be concluded that there is no multicollinearity in the regression model. Heterokedasticity test. In this study, the test used is with glacier testing. Regression model can be said to contain no heterokedasticity if the significant value greater than 0.05. Based on the glacier test, it can be known that each independent variable has a significance value greater than 0.05. Thus, it can be concluded that there is no stochasticity in the regression model. Next is multiple correlation and regression analysis. This is the multiple regression equation formula. And this is the explanation. 1. The constant value of 0.43 can be interpreted that if all independent variables are constant at number 0, then financial statement fraud increases by 0.43 to stimulus coefficient value of 1.231 with a positive value, which means that every increases in stimulus variable by 1 by multiple by 1, then financial statement fraud will increase by 1.231, assuming other variables are constant. 3. Capability coefficient value of 0.009 with a positive value. This means that every increase in the capability multiplied by 1, then the financial statement fraud will increase by 0.009. And 4 is collusion. The collusion coefficient is 0.032 with negative value. And it indicates that each variable increase collusion by one times, then financial statement fraud will decrease by 0.032, assuming the other variable is constant. 5. Opportunity coefficient value of 0.004 with a positive value. This means that every increase in the opportunity variable by 1 time, then financial statement fraud will increase by 0.004, assuming the other variable is constant. And 6 is the rationalization with coefficient value is 0.313 with a positive value. And the last one is ego with a coefficient of 0 with positive value, and which means that this variable doesn't increase or decrease financial statement. And next one is adjusted R-square or coefficient of determination. The result of regression statistical output in this study obtained an adjusted R-square figure of 0.233. This means that the independent variable can explain the movement patterns of dependent variable by 23.3%, while the remaining 76.7% is explained by other free variables. This is the statistical test. T partial test or t-test has the goal of showing how much influence independent variable individually in describing variation in dependent variables. We can conclude that x1 is rejected and there is no effect of x1 on y, and x2 is rejected because the significant value is greater than 0.05. H2 is rejected and there is no effect of x2 on y, and variable x3 is accepted and there is an effect of x3 on y. For significant value for x4 against y is 0.077, is greater than 0.05. So that x4 is rejected and there is no effect of x4 on y. And number 5 is variable x5. x5 is lower than the 0.05, and so x5 is accepted and there is an effect of x5 on y. And the last one is x6 is rejected and there is no effect of x6 on y. And the next one is statistical test F. Based on the table above, signature values are obtained lower than 0.05, then HO was rejected or H1 accepted, meaning that the model was feasible for use in the study. And the result is 1. Effect of stimulus on financial statement fraud. The result of the study showed that stimulus variable had no effect on financial statement fraud. The probability value of a stimulus variable is greater than value of 0.05. Stimulus is projected with ROA, and the effect of ROA on financial statement fraud can occur because managers consider that the ROA target is not a component that can urge the manager to make financial statement fraud. The manager feels himself able to achieve the ROA target. The rise and fall of ROA values can occur due to many things. Low ROA values can occur due to crises that hit companies, the occurrence of new market trends, and or companies that are less adaptable. On the other hand, higher ROA values can be strived by improving information system, recruiting reliable workers, and the existence of policy from the right directors in addressing problems. Thus, the use of ROA values to detect financial statement fraud is less effective. 2. Influence on financial statement fraud. The result of this study showed that capability variable had no effect on financial statement fraud. The change of director made by the company cannot prove an indication of financial statement fraud. Companies that change director because the company needs a leader who can bring the company to survive and develop in the business world. For this reason, the role of director is very important to make decisions and formulate policies that will benefit the company, so that there is a change of director in the company. 3. The influence of collusion in financial statement fraud. The result of this study showed that the collusion variable had a significant negative effect on financial statement fraud. The probability value of the collusion variable is smaller than the significant value of 0.05. Collusion is projected with political connection and measured by looking at whether the president commissioner or independent commissioner has political connection or not. The result of research that has a negative direction between political connection and financial statements fraud means that any company that has political connection will reduce the potential for financial statement fraud in company. This is allegedly due to ease obtained by the company, such as existence of corporation contracts with the governments or certain agencies, and ease in promoting the company. With this convenience that can occur if the company has political connection, then indirectly the performance, financial condition, and company revenue will also increase. So the possibility of the company making a financial statement fraud will decrease. 2. It can be concluded that with the political connection owned by the company will reduce the indication of financial statement fraud. 4. The influence of opportunity on financial statement fraud. The results of the study showed that opportunity variable had no effect on financial statement fraud. Opportunity is projected with nature of industry and measured by looking at accounts receivable on financial statement. This effect may be because the sample in this study is a banking company that tends to have a large receivable value and has increased every year to fulfill the task and function of banking, namely to distribute credit to the community. Then, the effect of the nature of industry proves that the subjective assessment of certain account is inevitable from the company's activity, so it cannot be considered as a loophole to make a financial statement fraud. Management in the company must follow the rules and guidelines in the PSAK, especially PSAK 60 regarding financial instrument disclosure. 5. The effect of rationalization on financial statement fraud. The study showed that rationalization has a positive effect on financial statement fraud. This explains that rationalization is in line with the against theory that there is a difference of interest between the principal and the agent. Rationalization is utilized by management because it has been given trust as an agent by principal. Rationalization carried out by the manager in the form of manipulation and modification, where the agent will try to provide the best possible financial statement so that the value of the company's performance will look good. This is motivated by a conflict of interest between the principal and the agent. On the other hand, the principal will experience losses because the modification can affect decision-making through financial statements. 6. The influence of ego on financial statement fraud. The result of the study showed that ego had no effect on financial statement fraud. The number of CEOs picture emblazoned on the company annual report doesn't affect indication on financial statement fraud. The emergence of CEO photo is a form of corporate transparency to introduce anyone who occupies the board of directors in the company. It is also a form of responsibility for the CEO's performance during the period agreed upon the extraordinary general meeting of shareholders or EGM. Then the emergence of the CEO photo is also to build trust in the company's investor, because the investor will know better who has the highest position in the company. Chapter 5, closing. Conclusion. There is no variable effect on stimulus on financial statement fraud. There is no variable influence on financial statement fraud. There is a significant negative influence of variable pollution on financial statement fraud. There is no variable opportunity influence on financial statement fraud. 5. There is a significant positive influence of variable rationalization on financial statement fraud. And 6. There is no influence of variable ego on financial statement fraud. Theoretical implication. 1. This research is expected to contribute as a development of the science of inquisition and auditing about financial statement fraud commonly carried out by certain companies or individuals for personal gain. The result revealed that financial statement fraud actually occurred in banking sector companies listed on the Indonesia Stock Exchange during the period of 2018 to 2020. 2. There is no significant effect or there is no effect on stimulus on financial statement fraud. 3. The result shows that capability has no effect on financial statement fraud. 4. The result shows that collusion has a negative effect on financial statement fraud. 5. Opportunity has no effect on financial statement fraud. 6. Rationalization has a positive effect on financial statement fraud. 7. Ego has no effect on financial statement fraud. Practical implication. A. For the company, the result of this study are expected to be considered by management about matters that affect financial statement fraud, so that management is able to consider well in decision making and avoid fraudulent practice that harm the company. B. For the investor, the result of this study are expected to provide information for the investor in detecting financial statement frauds that occur in the company, so that investor can consider well in investing decision. C. For public accounting firm, the result of this study are expected to be a source of information to public accounting firms to maximize quality and prudence in checking the company's financial statements. The limitation of the research. This research is not separated from limitation. The limitation of these studies are as follows. 1. This research is limited to the use of proxy used in explaining independent variables such as stimulus, capability, collusion, opportunity, rationalization, and ego. There are other proxies that have not been studied in this study. 2. The object of this research only focused on the banking sector. 3. The study limited by period to 3 years, namely the period 2018 and 2020. And recommendation for the next researchers. 1. Researchers are further expected to use the other proxies in explaining independent variables and adding other independent variables to improve the result of variation, so that they can test other factors that can influence financial statement fraud. 2. Population captured in the study only focus on the banking sector. Other researchers are expected to take other sectors to see how the results are obtained from these other sectors. 3. The period used in the study is only 3 years, 2018 to 2020. Subsequent research is faced with increasing or updating the observation period to get more accurate results. 4. Researchers are next expected to use other proxies or add other proxies to measure collusion variable, such as by conducting interview. That's all for me. Thank you for watching. Hope this presentation helps a lot of people.